11:30, let's update news headlines. Asanda Matsaunyane, good morning again. Many thanks to Asanda Matsaunyane, and remember that Midday Life is going to be coming up at 12 through until 1 o'clock. But for now, we cross to the dealing room at Investec Asset Management and say good morning to Kagiso Matlala. Ever wondered how the digital age is impacting on the classrooms and other learning institutions? Well, this year's Africa Education Week and Career Indaba, which will be taking place in June, will be looking at the impact that the digital age is having on educators. How are they keeping up with such a massive development, and what are some of the challenges they face? Well, to look at this, we joined online from Namibia by Dr. Adele Botha, Principal Researcher at the CSIR. Doctor, good morning to you, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Let's talk about the digital age. What kind of impact is it having on educators?
Yeah, the problem with the digital age is that all our children are now digital owners, or they have access to digital technology. So it's a very disruptive technology, and it disrupts the control of access. So in a way, the gatekeeper has fallen away, the gatekeeper to what type of technology is being used, the gatekeeper to information. So it necessitates a change in the way we teach, and we've been rather slow to actually get round to that.
Disruptive in which way?
Well, disruptive in we are still asking questions of children to which they can Google the answer. Disruptive in the way of the teacher is no longer the only source of knowledge. While the teacher is explaining one thing in the class, or the lecturer is explaining one thing in the class, his students or the kids are sitting and Googling the right answer under the desk. And I frankly am thinking, what value add am I getting on this? Because they are very critical consumers, our children.
So what kind of challenges has this come with, especially for the teachers?
How do we engage our children? How do we keep them that lust for learning? Because we shouldn't be teaching them things that they can actually find out on their own. We should be interpreting things and pointing them to the correct way or the right ways to place things. We should be engaging in a world where they are very comfortable in. And I don't think we're doing that. We're kind of crippling our children. University students do everything online except write exams. And then they walk out of there and they complain that their hands are dying because it's the first time they've written in 5 years. It necessitates a different way of engaging our children, as I said. So we have to not teach them where to find information, but how to critically analyze this information. And I think the most important thing, well, for the survival of all of us, is that we need to encourage our children to become providers. They need to participate in the knowledge environment, and they actually need to become knowledge providers. We at the moment tend to be a community of consumers, and I don't think that is where Africa should lie, because we have an extremely rich heritage, and this is not being put out there. I mean, there's no books in our local languages, and I'm talking about all the local languages out there to be read. So in a way, the African experience online is a very poor one, and yet we have the most users in the world.
What is the different way then that we need to implement to engage children?
Okay, it calls for a change of the way in which we teach. It calls for a change in the way in which we view knowledge. I think where we are heading slowly but surely is that we're moving from where the teacher kind of facilitates the class to where the teacher can point, or the lecturer can point learners to get the best type of experience. In other words, you throw together social media lectures from all over the best universities in the world. I mean, we don't necessarily, as a teacher, always have the most cutting-edge knowledge or visions. But the Internet allows us to get this from all over. And even if we don't have internet access, the technology allows us to read online books. It allows us to be creative. The CSIR has just completed a very successful Indigenous knowledge repository. And in this, we are preserving Indigenous knowledge from Africa. And I don't see why Africa can't become a continent of creators, where we actually, instead of sitting and learning in a class, we become creators of unique knowledge.
One would say that, the world is moving and we need to be moving with it and incorporate what you've just mentioned into the digital age. Yes,
I do believe it. But I also don't believe that we have to give away everything that makes us unique. What we need to do, we need to create our own version of moving ahead. We don't have to move ahead at anyone else's pace or anyone else's recipe. As long as we are engaging, and this is what Africa is doing. We're a nation of innovators. We're a nation of putting things out there, and I believe that it will be no different once we get onto a comfortableness with the digital age. And I believe our first stop is our teachers. They're the ones that will be able to mediate our learners, or the lecturers, mediate our learners to become these digital citizens that can fill their place in the online society.
What do you think we need to do that we are not doing?
I think we should stop banning things that are very unnecessary just because we're very scared of them. 2/3 of the schools in South Africa are still banning cell phones and then trying to incorporate computer labs. The logic in it, there is just no logic. Today, cell phones are much more powerful than a few years back's computers, and these children are sitting with self-financed technology. And yet we're saying to them, when you come into my school, I don't want you to actually have it. So, and I think it's because we're scared of we're not comfortable with it. We didn't grow up that way. So I think it's changing our attitude to embrace the new instead of kind of our first reaction to ban.
Are you going to be delivering a talk at the Africa Education Week and Career Indaba? If so, is it going to be focusing on this particular aspect?
Yes, I am actually. I'm talking about the disruptive, embracing nature of social media as a learning tool within education with a very good colleague of mine, Maggie Verster. So it's a plenary, it's a debate, and we are debating towards that. It would be very interesting. I'm very proud that we are able to, and this conference has grown in the last few years, and it just shows the focus of the government in quality education, that there's such a lot of interest in where we are going, and the amount of initiatives that's happening and people that are so proud and thankful to report back. We're living in a time of great opportunity, and it's wonderful. We always hear the horrible stories about education, but there are so many good stories out there. And this is one forum to actually celebrate the successes that are out there.
Well, thank you very much for having spoken to us, Dr. Adele Botha, Principal Researcher at the CSIR. She's also going to be a panelist at the Africa Education Week and Career Indaba, and that's going to be taking place next month, and we'll be looking at the impact the digital age is having on educators.